lead event stylist and designer for Viridian Events, a boutique firm specializing in bespoke, high-end installations. We turn dreams into tangible, unforgettable experiences, usually for a price tag that makes accountants sweat. My reputation is built on precision, client satisfaction, and, above all, structural integrity. Be not me, Serafina, the client from hell, a self-proclaimed visionary with a trust fund budget that barely covered the deposit on a bespoke napkin ring, demanding a $100,000 wedding experience for $5,000. She was arrogance personified, swanning into our consultation like she owned the very air we breathed. Her initial email was a red flag. It outlined a desire for a transcendent, ethereal, utterly unique wedding experience at the historic Willowbrook Manor Gardens, explicitly stating a five-figure budget. Our minimum retainer alone was nearly that. My assistant flagged it, but a senior partner, eager for a challenge, gave me the green light to take the initial meeting. Big mistake. The first interaction was a preview of the coming storm. Serafina arrived an hour late, then spent another 30 minutes critiquing the artisanal coffee I had prepared, calling it uninspired. She had an air about her, a dismissive flick of the wrist, a patronizing tone that grated on every nerve. She then presented her vision board. It was a chaotic collage of high-fashion editorials, celebrity weddings, and abstract art. The centerpiece was a series of images of a colossal, freestanding floral archway, impossibly delicate yet spanning an entire section of a manicured lawn. This, she declared, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at a particularly elaborate example, is what I want, exactly like this, but bigger, and it needs to feel like it's floating. I explained calmly that such a structure required extensive engineering, specific foundation work, and permits, especially for its proposed placement near Willowbrook Manor's ancient willow tree, which sat on soft, marshy ground. I quoted her a figure just for that single installation that exceeded her entire stated budget. Her eyes narrowed. That's absurd. My cousin's boyfriend built a treehouse in his backyard. It can't be that hard. Find a way to make it cheaper. Significantly, she insisted on using her own contractor, a friend from college, for the build, despite our firm's strict policy of vetting all third-party vendors for liability and quality. I immediately red-flagged this to my managing partner, who, surprisingly, approved a waiver after Serafina threatened to take her business elsewhere. I documented everything. The second red flag popped up when we discussed the photography. Viridian Events works exclusively with a curated list of top-tier photographers. We have established relationships, contracts, and quality guarantees. Serafina dismissed them all as overpriced and unoriginal. She demanded we use her cousin's daughter, Luna, who had just started a photography course at community college. Luna, Serafina assured me, had a unique eye and was practically a genius with filters. I tried to explain the complexities of event photography: lighting, timing, client management, backup equipment, insurance. Luna will be fine, Serafina interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. Just make sure she has good light for the archway. It needs to be epic. My internal monologue screamed. This wasn't just about poor quality. It was about liability. What if Luna tripped, damaged equipment, or failed to deliver any usable images? I updated the contract addendum to explicitly state that Viridian Events assumed no responsibility for the quality or delivery of photography services provided by an unapproved third-party vendor selected by the client, under strict client instruction. Serafina signed it without reading. Classic. The third, and perhaps most infuriating, demand came during the menu tasting. Willowbrook Manor provided a high-end, in-house catering service known for its exquisite farm-to-table dishes. Serafina, however, brought in her own gourmet chef, who turned out to be her mother's friend, a part-time caterer specializing in novelty-themed desserts for children's parties. The chef proposed a menu consisting entirely of brightly colored, sugar-laden treats shaped like cartoon characters, alongside platters of miniature hot dogs and tater tots. For a black-tie luxury wedding, I gently but firmly explained that Willowbrook Manor had strict rules about external catering for health and safety reasons, not to mention the jarring mismatch with the venue's elegant ambience. Serafina erupted. "You are trying to sabotage my vision. My mother's friend is a culinary artist. This is my wedding, not some corporate gala." She threatened to sue us for breach of contract if we didn't accommodate her chef. After another series of heated emails and a call with the venue manager, who reluctantly agreed to allow the external catering only if Serafina signed a full liability waiver for food safety and paid an exorbitant kitchen access fee, the decision was made. Again, detailed documentation of her specific demands, the associated risks, and her explicit assumption of liability. The paper trail was growing thicker than the icing on her friend's cupcakes. 3 days before the wedding, the breaking point arrived. My team and I had spent months meticulously planning every detail that could be controlled, navigating Serafina's increasingly bizarre demands. The permits for Willowbrook Manor's designated outdoor event space were secured, the lighting schematics were finalized, and the few approved vendors were on standby. Serafina, however, had been radio silent regarding her floating archway contractor for weeks. No blueprints, no safety certifications, no contact information. My gut screamed. That morning, I received an agitated call from Serafina. "The archway design is all wrong," she shrieked, as if I was personally responsible for her contractor's incompetence. "It needs to be moved. My contractor says the current location isn't vibey enough. He can't get it to float there." I felt my jaw clench. The initial plans, which she had signed off on, clearly placed the archway on stable ground near the paved path, avoiding the notoriously soft, waterlogged soil by the willow tree. I had specifically chosen that spot to avoid the very issues she was now complaining about. "Serafina," I began, my voice carefully modulated. "The agreed-upon location for the archway was chosen for its stability and access. Moving it 3 days out is impossible. We have permits for that specific footprint." She cut me off, her voice dripping with venom. "I don't care about your permits. My contractor, Bari, says it needs to go directly under the willow tree, right on the edge of the pond. It needs to look like it's growing out of the water, a natural extension of nature. He said it's your job to make it work." I paused, a cold knot forming in my stomach. The willow tree area was absolutely off-limits for heavy structures. It was designated soft ground, no heavy loads in the manor's vendor handbook, a detail I had specifically highlighted in our preliminary discussions. Bari, her unvetted contractor, had clearly ignored every safety protocol and common sense warning. "Serafina, that's incredibly unsafe," I stated, my voice losing its calm edge. "The ground there is marshy even after a dry spell. Any significant structure will destabilize, especially with the winds predicted for Saturday. We've had a lot of rain this month. It's a risk of collapse." "Nonsense," she scoffed. "Bari assures me it will be fine. He just needs stronger anchoring, and you need to pay for it. You should have anticipated this. You're the expert, aren't you?" She then delivered the killer blow. "In fact, I'm deducting the cost of Bari's reinforcements and any additional labor for moving your archway from your final invoice. And if it's not perfect, I'm withholding the entire balance." My archway. Her contractor was building it. It was a complete reversal of responsibility, an attempt to pin the blame on me for her own terrible decision. This was it, my breaking point. My polite facade cracked, but a different kind of resolve set in. I went into read-only mode. No more arguments, no more pleading. My only response was a calm, almost robotic, "Understood, Serafina. I will relay your instructions to the relevant parties. Please send an email confirming these changes immediately." She huffed, hung up, and the email arrived 5 minutes later, bolded, underlined, and dripping with entitlement. "As per our conversation, I demand the floral archway be relocated to the specific spot under the willow tree, overlooking the pond. My contractor, Bari, will handle the structure. Veridian Events is responsible for ensuring the successful and beautiful installation at this new, approved location. Any additional costs incurred by my contractor to secure the structure will be deducted from your final payment. Perfect. The trap was set. My master plan began. I meticulously documented everything. First, I forwarded Serafina's email to my managing partner with a copy to our legal counsel, highlighting every clause she was violating and every risk she was creating. I also attached the section of Willowbrook Manor's vendor handbook that explicitly prohibited heavy structures on the soft ground near the willow tree, as well as the initial signed agreement where Serafina approved the original safe placement. Next, I immediately contacted Willowbrook Manor's events manager, Mr. Henderson, a man known for his meticulous adherence to property bylaws. I informed him, via recorded call and follow-up email, of Serafina's new, non-compliant demand, emphasizing that she had explicitly overridden our professional advice and was insisting on her own contractor. I made it clear that Veridian Events would proceed only under her direct, written instruction, and that the Manor's rules were being violated by her decision, not ours. Mr. Henderson, after a moment of stunned silence, sighed deeply. "Document everything," he said, "and ensure your team is not directly involved in the structural work for that archway, just the floral dressing post-installation." Then I focused on my team. I called an emergency meeting. I showed them the emails, the contracts, the waivers. "We are going to fulfill Serafina's requests," I told them, my voice flat, "to the letter. No more, no less. Our only involvement with the archway will be purely decorative. We will not touch the supports, the foundations, or any anchoring. We will observe. We will document. Every step, every single measurement, every material bar uses, every conversation. Time-stamped photos, video, GPS coordinates, everything." My team, initially shocked, quickly understood. This wasn't about saving the wedding anymore. It was about protecting our company and ourselves. The malicious compliance was in full swing. I personally oversaw the placement of our floral decor, ensuring it was aesthetic but not structurally reliant on Bari's flimsy build. I had my assistant take a series of photos of Bari's crew, looking utterly bewildered, attempting to anchor what looked like glorified tent poles into the squishy ground with inadequate ropes and small stakes. The floating effect in person looked more like precariously wobbling. The air around the willow tree smelled faintly of damp earth and desperation. Serafina, meanwhile, remained blissfully ignorant, demanding more sparkle and flowy fabric from my team, oblivious to the ticking time bomb she had personally constructed. She even tried to instruct us to help Bari secure the structure, but I politely, firmly, referred her to her own written instructions and Bari's contractual obligation. She huffed but dropped it. The wedding day dawned bright, but with a stiff, unpredictable breeze rolling in from the nearby river. The kind of breeze that whispers of stronger gusts to come. Serafina, swathed in layers of tulle and demanding a final fluff of her dress, finally made her grand entrance. The guests were seated, the string quartet played a delicate melody. Luna, the cousin's daughter photographer, was fumbling with her camera settings, oblivious. The officiant began the ceremony. Serafina and her groom stood directly beneath the towering, floating floral archway. It looked magnificent from a distance if you ignored the slight sway. My internal clock was ticking. I stood near the back, my phone recording discreetly, a professional, calm expression masking the coiled spring of anticipation inside me. Just as the officiant reached the "do you take this woman" line, a particularly strong gust of wind swept through the garden. It wasn't a gale, just a firm, persistent push. The archway, already struggling, groaned. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Then, with a sickening crack and a shower of delicate petals, one of the main support poles, barely sunk into the soft earth, gave way. The entire structure, a multi-tiered edifice of flowers and lightweight timber, didn't so much collapse as it leaned. Slowly, majestically, it tipped forward directly over Serafina and her groom, Screams erupted. Chaos ensued. The archway didn't fully crush anyone, but it certainly took out the officiant's lectern, some guest chairs, and several very expensive floral arrangements. Serafina shrieked, her perfectly coiffed hair now adorned with fallen hydrangeas. The groom caught her, pulling her out from under the collapsing structure just in time, narrowly avoiding a cascade of timber. The floating archway was now a mangled heap of ruined florals and splintered wood, lying across the very spot Serafina had insisted upon. Luna, the photographer, managed to capture a blurry, overexposed photo of the final moments of the collapse, then promptly burst into tears. Serafina, scrambling to her feet, pointed a trembling, accusation-filled finger directly at me. You sabotaged my wedding. You did this. I knew you hated my vision." My moment arrived. I stepped forward, calm amidst the panic. "Serafina," I stated, my voice cutting through the din, "I informed you repeatedly, both verbally and in writing, that this location was unstable. I provided you with excerpts from Willowbrook Manor's bylaws specifically prohibiting structures in this area. I documented your explicit instructions to override our professional advice and proceed with your unvetted contractor, Bari." I held up my phone. "I have your email, dated 3 days ago, demanding the archway be moved to this exact spot, specifically stating, quote, Veridian Events is responsible for ensuring the successful and beautiful installation at this new, approved location. I also have time-stamped photographs and videos of Bari's inadequate anchoring attempts, taken at your insistence, along with our formal waivers where you accepted full liability for any structural failures from his work." Mr. Henderson, the manor's manager, pushed through the crowd, his face grim. He took one look at the splintered mess and the marshy ground, then glared at Serafina. "Madam," he said, his voice laced with iron, "this area is strictly off-limits for installations. You signed a waiver acknowledging our property rules. Veridian Events brought this to my attention 3 days ago. Your event is over." The fallout was immediate and spectacular. The rest of the luxury event dissolved into a shambolic mess. The hot dogs and tater tots sat untouched, wilting in the sun. Luna, overwhelmed, deleted most of her photos in a fit of nerves. Serafina's gourmet chef packed up her cartoon cupcakes and fled. Within hours, Veridian Events received a full apology from Willowbrook Manor and a retainer for future bookings. Serafina's family, mortified by the public spectacle and the clear evidence of her negligence, retreated. Our lawyers sent her a bill for our time, the damages to the manor's lawn, and a stern reminder of her signed contracts. Bari, her contractor, disappeared faster than a free sample at a food festival. Update 1, 2 weeks later. Serafina's attempts to sue us for emotional distress and sabotage were dead on arrival. Our meticulously maintained paper trail was unassailable. Her own signed waivers, emails, and even the blurry, terrible photos Luna had kept, showing Bari haphazardly securing the structure, completely exonerated us. Willowbrook Manor also hit her with a hefty bill for property damage and loss of future bookings for that specific area. Her parents, utterly humiliated, cut her off financially for a month to teach her a lesson. Word on the local society circuit is she's become a pariah. Update 2, 1 month later. News broke that Bari, Serafina's contractor, was actually an unlicensed handyman with a history of code violations. Turns out he'd been trying to impress her for years. The city council, alerted by Mr. Henderson, issued a cease and desist order against him and a substantial fine. Serafina's attempt to get her deducted costs backfired spectacularly. When our lawyers sent her an additional invoice for the expert witness fees, we had to pay to prove Bari's incompetence. Her initial $5,000 budget ended up costing her family well over $150,000 in damages, fees, and legal costs. The irony was palpable. Update 3, 3 months later. I heard through the grapevine that Serafina eventually married the groom in a small courthouse ceremony. They used an online photo service for their pictures. Her parents insisted on an all-inclusive cruise package for their honeymoon, a very public display of no decision-making power for Serafina. The final, delicious detail. Willowbrook Manor now has a discreet, tasteful plaque by the willow tree, installed by Mr. Henderson himself. It reads, "Designated soft ground. No permanent or temporary structures permitted. By order of Willowbrook Manor Management." My malicious compliance had become a permanent, subtle warning, and a legendary story for the ages.